Okay, here we go. Focus. Speed. I am speed. One winner. 42 losers. I eat losers for breakfast.
Hear that? That line right there that you just heard. One winner, 42 losers. I eat losers for breakfast. That line implies that there are 43 Piston Cup racers total. Yet, we only saw 36 of them actually. So basically, what this implies is that there were 7 missing racers from the first Cars movie. As you can see here, I'm playing Cars, the video game's Piston Cup race at Motor Speedway of the South. But you want to hear something? Only 20 of the sponsors from the first movie returned in the video game. To be fair though, the video game racers are already pretty inconsistent to their Cars 1 counterparts. So it's not a big surprise to me that they don't even bother to show us the 7 missing racers. Cars 3, however. When it was announced that 7 new sponsors would be coming to Cars 3, people were hyped. They thought that they'd finally be getting to see who the 7 missing racers from Cars 1 were. However, that wasn't exactly the case. Instead, Pixar took 7 of the original sponsors from the first movie and just yeeted them out of existence in favor of these new sponsors. And they still didn't answer our question about who these missing 7 racers from either the first movie or the third movie now were. And yeah, he still pretty much says that line he said from the first movie.
One winner, 42 losers. I eat losers for breakfast.
I guess those racers were just too small to see or something, or were just too far from the background. I don't know, but this is a really big inconsistency. An inconsistency that sparked a very big discussion in the Cars community. Many people have tried to make out who these missing 7 racers are and what they look like. Inspired by JDOS Productions, I decided I wanted to try and show my take on the missing 7 racers. What I mean by that is, you guys will get to see what they look like. I've even made my own diecasts of each of them. And at the end of the video, I'll even share my headcanon reason for why we didn't see any of them in the Dynaco 400. Now, before I show them off, you guys are probably wondering what they'll be like. Some of them are probably diecasts that you've seen on this channel before. A couple you have probably not. Now, if you were a fan of my channel in late 2023, then you probably saw my Cars 1 Racers elimination, most likely. Well, that elimination series is obviously not canon to anything on my channel. So, yeah, some of these racers you'll probably seen before, but they will have different names. And you're probably wondering if all of these will just be the Cars 3 stock cars, but with Cars 1 models. No, that won't entirely be the case. There will be a few Cars 1 racers with Cars 3 sponsors, but a few of these are actually just sponsors from the background of Cars that weren't used as Piston Cup sponsors. And one of these is literally just a real-life NASCAR sponsor put on a model that isn't a Piston Cup one, but races in the Piston Cup. If you've been watching my channel since like May last year, then you probably know who I'm talking about. But anyways, guys, enough of this. It's time to reveal the missing 7 from the Kirby Tankson universe. And so, you basically just saw the missing 7 racers paint jobs. Now, you probably have seen a few of these guys before. I showed off this Jeff Corvette custom I made of him in a NASCAR paint job over the summer and during one of the 25 Days of Christmas videos. And during the 2005 teaser trailer ranking list I made a few months ago, when talking about the pizza plant racer from the trailer, I even revealed one of my missing 7 racers, which turned out to also be a pizza plant racer. You might have also spotted a couple of these before in a couple of my videos, but a couple of these are new and you've probably never seen them before. As you can see here, the sponsors I chose for each of these missing 7 racers were Intersection, Synergy, Texas Tea, Pizza Planet, Yum, DuPont, and Triple Dead Gum. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and explain each one of these racers one by one, what their backstories are, why I chose their sponsors, and why their paint jobs are the way they are, so on and so forth. Starting with number 00. This right here is Dylan Piston. Now, why I chose Intersection? Because they're one of my favorite sponsors from Cars 3. I mean, I love both Jimmy Cables and Flipped Over right here. I just think they're such a consistently good sponsor from Cars 3, and that's exactly why I wanted to make a Cars 1 adaptation of that sponsor. You can kind of tell that I want to do the same thing for Synergy and Triple Dent Gum as well, but Intersection was just the one I was the most excited to talk about in this video of the sponsors that came from Cars 3. I know I probably shouldn't talk about these guys like as if I'm doing diecast reviews on them, but what the frick. Anyways, so starting off here, I gave him some really vibrant pink. I think it looks really good on him. And I gave him blue eyes there. Some details I've been doing to my customs lately. So anyways, we move on to the side, and you can see these stripes right here. They're looking really nice on him. Plus, I did a detail with the wheels where I made some red outlining, a reference to the fact that inconsistently on Jimmy Cable's diecast, he is red even though his movie appearance is actually pink. So, there are red tails there. They're just hard to see because it's pink. But yeah. So anyways, that's the paint job and the guy right here. Now let's talk about his bio. Dylan Piston's girlfriend, now wife Haley Piston, was a big fan of the Piston Cup when they were just students. That inspired Dylan to join the Piston Cup and Haley to join Gear Trophy. And so, Dylan would go on to win at least 2 races so far. But his wife knows he's done a pretty good job on the track. Off the track, however, Dylan and Haley have raised their children. And he's raised them quite well. They might even become future Piston Cup racers. You guys probably just heard the word Gear Trophy and are wondering what it even means. Not the first time I've had to explain a fan-made motorsport name, but anyways, Gear Trophy is basically the equivalent to IndyCar in the Cars universe. Originally, I was just gonna settle for calling the Cars universe IndyCar, just IndyCar, but in the Cars universe. But I thought it was so bland, so a while ago, I decided to give it a different name. Since NASCAR and IndyCar have pretty similar names, I thought why not give the Cars universe version of IndyCar a similar name to the Piston Cup. So then, I came up with the name Gear Trophy. Probably should have just called it Gear Cup or something, but I'll settle with it. And one detail you guys can pretty much gather from this is that Dylan's family, the Piston family, is basically a racing family. Even before Piston made his debut on the Piston Cup circuit, his father was already a 3-time Gear Trophy champion who had retired by the time he started racing. Probably should have put that in his bio, but I forgot. Now, anyways, let's move on to the next racer. This is Daryl Dragard. Before you ask why he's not a Blink R racer, I just want to remind you that almost everyone else considers him a Blink R racer. I just want to do something new, that's all. I will say this, however. Back in my elimination, I did go with the name Daryl Dragard because someone suggested that I do the Blink R racer as Daryl Dragard. Back when I had a Blink R racer, then I repainted him to be the Yum racer. I'll get to that in a bit, but anyways, back then, I thought that Daryl Dragard was just a fan-made name that was really popular among the Cars community. Then I read Aiken Axler's bio, and it turns out he's actually a mentioned character that was never shown. So then I thought about having a Synergy Cars 1 racer, but he's a Claude Scruggs model, and he's Daryl Dragard, because I usually never see Daryl Dragard depicted as anything else other than a Blink R racer, which is a pretty popular choice for his ideal look. I know I could have kept him as a Blink R racer, but I like Lane Lock a lot more than Speedy Comet. So, anyway, starting off here, we have the yellow on the front bumper here. This was a really nice detail I wanted to make. Then we have the green on the hood, along with the Synergy right here, the Synergy logo right here. And then you see cyan as the main paint for the whole body. And on the back here, we've got the taillights, which you can actually see this time. And the Synergy logo right here and right here. And on the sides, we even have green going over the back wheels a little. And you might notice something about this custom, and it's that I actually managed to not paint over the contingency sponsors. And that's something I plan to do with future Piston Cup racer customs. And you probably wonder why do the others not have this problem and this one doesn't? It's because he was actually the last custom I needed to make prior to making this video. Yeah, I just had to get a Claude Scruggs model duplicate in order to make this. So yeah. And now we're going to compare him to his canon counterparts, the ones who actually appear in the movie, Lane Lock and Eric Breaker. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of Eric, but we got him here anyways. So anyways, you can see the details about this, about these two. And even though I don't really like Eric Breaker, I decided to have the dark green be present a little here, and I think it looks really nice on him. So yeah. Now, on to his bio. Daryl Dragard is buddies with Aiken Axler. When he and Aiken came into the sport, they met a humble racer named Curtis Tandrev and his friends, and has been considered a close friend. With their friends now retired, Aiken and Daryl continue to race. Daryl fears the day retirement will strike, but until then, he keeps racing. Now, there was one thing that confused me while I was making Daryl Dragard. Near the beginning of JDOS's video on his take on the missing 7 racers, he stated that Daryl Dragard was apparently retired by the time the 2005 season came around. I don't know if there's any actual source or information that's trustworthy that says Daryl Dragard's retired by the time that came around, but if there is, please let me know in the comments. In case you're wondering who Curtis Tandrev is and his friends, they're all racers that raced before Aiken and Daryl came into the sport, and they retired before the 2005 season. But basically, Daryl and Aiken are two old friends that were still racing in the Piston Cup in the 2005 season. Now let's move on to the next one. Now, this missing racer is not related to any Cars Race sponsor, but is related to a background sponsor that didn't appear as a racer. This is Riggy Clutch. He is the number 9 Texas T racer. Texas T is actually a background sponsor from somewhere in the Cars movie, I don't remember where, but it never really sponsored a Piston Cup racer. I've seen several takes that the Texas T racer would technically be the number 9 racer, and I've even seen some people depict that Bill Racelot in the Cars universe would be a Texas T racer. And originally, I was going to say that this racer, this Texas T racer, was going to be Bill Racelot, but that doesn't make any sense considering that he would have retired in 2003. And he basically would have been a Claude Scruggs model racer. So then I thought, why not just name this guy like as if he were a replacement for Bill Racelot? And by the way, guys, the reason why Bill Racelot was originally going to be an RPM model was because at the time I didn't have any duplicate Claude Scruggs models, and I still haven't made one yet to this day. But without further ado, let's review this guy's paint job. So starting off here, we have these colors here. Bill Elliott's colors mixed into the Texas T type colors over here. So, anyways, you can see his expression here. He's trying to be determined. And then we move on to the side over here. You can see there's a lot of blue right here. Wanted to really mix that into this design here. And move on to the back. And anyways, this looks like a really nice design. Gotta say, I really like it. And back in that one episode of Cars Driving Over the World I made over a year ago, The Wild Race, there is this one racer that did so happen to be in the episode that was a Texas T racer. It's basically this custom next-gen type racer who actually has a model from a different series, kind of like Jeff Corvette over here, but he races in the Piston Cup. Anyways, in case you're wondering what his name is, it's Marshall Carlington. But anyways, so basically you can see the red right here, and there's a lot of blue. There's a little bit more yellow. I don't think I mean, I like him, but I don't think I like him as much as Riggy here. I mean, Riggy looks really nice. Once again, on to the bio. Riggy Clutch joined the Piston Cup circuit in 2004, racing for the famous Texas T, and he even races the famous number 9. Riggy is known for being very shy when he's interviewed. He feels like he could vomit, which he has sometimes. So, basically, if you guys couldn't tell from the bio, Riggy is socially awkward. Or was, considering that he doesn't race in the Piston Cup anymore, and he eventually learned to stop being socially awkward, but it really sucked for him that he was socially awkward, especially when interviewed. Now, on to the next OC. Next up, we got Jackie Drybble, and yes, the Pizza Planet racer is a female. Now, as I've stated before in my Cars 2005 teaser trailer ranking list, Pizza Planet is one of my favorite Pixar Easter eggs that has appeared in almost every film from Pixar. I think actually every film. But yeah. Now, you're probably wondering why the hell there's another female Cars 1 racer when we already have one of them. Well, it's because back when I made her during the summer, I thought Misty Motorcross was cool, but her design was a little too simple for me. Good colors, just okay design. Looking back at it now, I feel like I should have made Jackie a boy. Mostly because we didn't really need another female racer, and the sole reason I was doing it is because I wasn't satisfied with the fact that the only female Piston Cup racer had a very simple design. But I still like how she turned out, though. As I stated in my 2005 teaser trailer ranking list when discussing Racer 18, the Pizza Planet racer in the 2005 teaser trailer racer, I wanted to make a Cars 1 racer who had the same Pizza Planet sponsor, but just had different Pizza Planet colors, which were still seen. In case you guys are wondering what Racer 18 looks like, I suggest you go check out the 2005 teaser trailer racers ranking list. The reason I'm not showing a picture of Racer 18 here is because the creator of that model I used in the video was probably terminated because I can't find his channel now. Guys, if you know if Resvin C has been terminated or not, please let me know. I stated in that video that none of the renders used belong to me, and I don't want to bring that render of Racer 18 back in this video in case Resvin C has been terminated, because I'd feel kind of rude for that. But anyways, let's talk about Jackie. So first off, you can see that I used the red, white, and yellow Pizza Planet colors, which were on Racer 18. And of course, this racer right here, who I painted over, that's actually Ralph Carlo, has the red tires, so of course, it made a perfect custom for her. And we move on to the back here. You got this yellow spoiler right here along with these tail lights. And you can see this is also a very simple design, but I did make sure to use the colors where I could use them. And we don't have any racers to compare to, but we do have Todd the Pizza Planet truck. Because why not? And you can see where I got the idea for these colors right here on Todd's door. Sorry about that. But anyways, so yeah, that's how her design looks. Now let's talk about her bio. Jackie grew up wanting nothing more than to drive above 100 and win races. Her tomboy attitude has shown she's not to be underestimated by any of the boys and has the capability of winning. She's even a friend of the only other female racer on the track, Misty Motocross. It's also worth mentioning that she's grabbed a couple of the boys' attention. Once again, considering that Misty Motocross is a female, she should probably have been a boy, but she's still very cool though, and I have no problem with her whatsoever. Now we move on to our next racer based on a real-life driver. Next up, we have Dave Laney here. Now that's right, Dave Laney. This guy is actually based on real-life NASCAR driver Dave Blaney, who is the father of Ryan Blaney, who was actually in Cars 3. I decided I wanted to make him the sponsor because it would actually look very similar to one of Dave Blaney's real-life paint schemes, that being his Caterpillar car. Now, I do want to go ahead and say that I did take a bit of inspiration from a user by the name of Dr. Motter. She created a version of Dave Laney, and I asked her if I could make one similar, and she said it was fine. And I know that Dave Blaney only ran with this scheme from about 2006 to 2008. I know that Dave Blaney didn't drive this car in 2005, but the Caterpillar car he drove is my favorite of his paint jobs. I could have done something like Igniter for the 07 car that he ran in 2005, but I think Igniter's better off not being a Piston Cup sponsor until Jackson Storm comes into the sport. So anyways, let's get on right into it. So first off, you got the front here, which is red, and then we got the hood. And there's some black on here along with the yellow logo right here. Should probably just make the whole hood yellow. And we move on to the side over here, which has some more black. Here. You can see I kind of tried to create the Piston Cup logo right there. However, I was a little unsuccessful since, you know, it doesn't have the trophy in there. And we move on to the back, and we have the black bumper along with the tail lights again. And yeah. Now we're gonna have like a little father-son comparison. I know that these aren't the same sponsor, but you know, just a nice little father-son moment between Dave and Ryan Laney. Once again, let's check out the bio. Dave Laney was a dirt racer prior to entering the Piston Cup. He actually won many races in the series he raced in and enjoyed it. He even won a cup in 1997, 1 year before he joined the Piston Cup. As a Piston Cup racer, he may not be the best, but he's a pretty good racer for what he is. Of course, Dave Blaney never actually won a race in NASCAR, unlike his son Ryan, who has won more than 10 races and is a champion in NASCAR as well. But he is probably one of the better drivers who never got a win. Now we better talk about the other NASCAR-based Piston Cup racer you guys were probably most interested in seeing. This is a custom that I made that you guys have probably seen before called NASCAR Jeff Corvette. Obviously, Jeff Corvette is an actual character in the Cars series, but unlike Daryl Dragard, we've actually seen him before. However, there are a couple things to note. One, we've seen Jeff Corvette before, just not in this paint job. And two, Jeff Corvette is actually voiced by real-life NASCAR driver Jeff Gordon. And when I first saw LB Productions' video on what a NASCAR Jeff Corvette would look like, I wanted to create one almost like it. Except, well...
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the
Yeah, I know. It looks like At the time, I didn't have any duplicate Jeff Corvettes, so I just decided to use a duplicate Ralph Carlo I had gotten at the time. You could tell because my stupid 2022 self didn't even bother to change the number on the headlight and censor the 117. If you haven't followed my channel for a while, then you wouldn't happen to know that over the summer, my Jeff Corvette spoiler broke off, so I decided to use that one and replace it with the color changers Jeff Corvette I had gotten at the time, and made it into a custom of NASCAR Jeff Corvette. And considering that I'm counting him as one of the missing 7 racers, he does quite stand out for being a completely different model from many of them. I mean, like, come on, guys. Would you really want me to go looking for another Ralph Carlo model and make the same stupid decision I made then? So, for the paint job, I actually decided to go with one of Jeff Gordon's most iconic paint jobs, the Rainbow Warriors scheme. This is an iconic NASCAR scheme from the 90s. Personally, myself, I was always more of a fan of the 2000s Flames Jeff Corvette. Literally not surprised considering that 3 of the Nitro racers are really good participants. Anyways, so, but I decided to do the Rainbow Warriors because it was more of an iconic NASCAR scheme than the Flames. I don't know, maybe if I get another Jeff Corvette duplicate, I might do a flame version, but anyways, I've already reviewed this guy before, so I'm not gonna say like too much on him. But I just want to say that he was really cool, you know? And by the way, guys, if you're ever wondering what happened to that Ralph Carlo duplicate, that actually eventually became Jackie over here. A lot of people are probably wondering right now, Kirby Tankston, why didn't you go with something like The Room or something? The Room is kind of a missed opportunity for me, but now that I think about it, it's kind of just a Rev and Go type sponsor or something. Then again, you could say the same thing about Triple Down, which I'm doing over here. But I think it's mostly because I don't think Faroon would really fit something like Jeff Corvette's paint job. But anyways, let's move on to the bio. Jeff Corvette started his career coming out of Indiana in 1983. He was and is a completely different piston cup model who had shown up on the track and started to whip the competition. Jeff Corvette has won 4 championships, many Brickyard 400s, and a couple of Florida 500s as well. He even raced some of the greats in the 90s, such as Dale Earnhardt Sr., Clint Shiftwright, and more. Jeff is often considered one of the competitors to beat, a real champion. Okay, so as you could tell there, it's not really all that easy to create these bios based on real-life drivers compared to creating bios on background racers we don't even know. But I tried. Like in real life, Jeff Corvette retired in 2015, and eventually Brickyard Lee, who had raced his whole career up until that point with the 61, got to replace him and wear the 24, but only for a year before he was replaced by Chase Racelot. Now let's move on to our final racer. This right here is Tobashi Agowa. I know it's because you already, but what's with the name? Well, Tobashi here is actually from Tokyo. Like Jackie, looking back at this now, I feel like he should have just been another typical racer, especially since we already have a racer from out of the United States that competes in the Piston Cup. And unlike Misty, Hauling Gas is actually one of my favorite Piston Cup racers. At least now he is. Back then, I just thought he was good. And I did manage to come up with a bio that makes him a little more unique than just being a quote-unquote Japanese car. And Japan's also one of the most interesting countries outside of the United States to me. Now let's go ahead and talk about the design. So, like his successors, his design is pretty simple. However, I decided to do something more. I decided to have some shine here, but also fill in the sides and the roof with some dark blue. I could have honestly added a little bit more white, but I still think he turned out pretty nice. He's simple, yeah, but pretty nice looking. Now let's compare him to his successors, Cargas and Cam Spinner. Honestly, I still think that it's between Terry and Cam for the nicer looking triple dent racer, but I really do like all of these guys. And besides, Triple Dent is one of my favorite sponsors, mostly because of the fact that they're an Easter egg from Inside Out. And you guys probably know what I'm about to say next. Tobashi Agowa comes from Tokyo, but the thing is, he started out his racing career as a street racer rather than a Piston Cup racer. But eventually he got tired of it and wanted something new. So he retired from street racing in Tokyo, and that's when he found out about the Piston Cup. It was a great idea for him, so he joined it. Looking back at it now, he's happy he joined, so that way he can be free to drive fast without a worry in the world. Almost makes me wonder if he ever raced against Kabuto or any of the tuner racers from Tokyo that we saw. But anyways, guys, those were the missing 7 racers. I'm pretty happy with how these guys turned out and pretty satisfied, to be honest. Now let's address a couple of questions here. So, why Daryl Dragard, but not Buck Schooner or Spider Dangerford? Since Spider Dangerford is described as a legendary racer, I would personally think that he would be retired by the 80s or 90s. As for Buck Schooner, I could see him retiring sometime in the early 2000s before the events of the first movie. My guess is he would have likely retired a year or two before the events of the movie. For Daryl Dragard, I can likely see him retiring a year or two after Cars, but anyways. So now, let's discuss the question you guys have been waiting for me to ask. Why didn't we see these guys at the Dynaco 400? I have seen some people say that they think these racers just didn't show up to the race. But if you ask me, I think that's just silly, and that there's actually a more simpler answer to that than people probably think. So hear me out, guys. Let's say for a second that the missing 7 were in the race, along with the other 36. However, we have to realize that, as Lightning said in Cars 2, crashes are a part of racing. Also, after Lightning said ka-chow, we don't even know if we just cut to the beginning of the race or like 10 or 30 laps into the race. It could have quite possibly been the second option. They could have possibly crashed 10 or 30 laps into the race off screen without us even knowing. I mean, they could have had engine failures, maybe accidental crashes because of brake failure or something, or possibly Chick hits. Heading into the Dynaco 400, Chick wanted to make sure that nothing, and I mean nothing, stood in the way of him winning the Piston Cup. So let's just say that a few of the missing 7 crashed because of accidents like brake failures or engine failures or even bad tires. But let's just say that one of them possibly stood in the way of him managing to beat the king, and so he wrecked that racer, taking out 3 other racers as well. And that is my headcanon reason why we did not see any of the missing 7 in the first Cars movie. So, what were your thoughts on these guys? Please let me know in the comments, and if you have any rankings on them, please feel free to tell me that as well. And before the video ends, I just want to make a quick reminder that just because these are headcanon to my universe, doesn't mean they have to be canon to anyone else's. And if you want to create an OC similar, that's fine, as long as you at least credit me for the designs you were inspired by. But anyways, guys, that'll do it for this video today. Anyways, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you feel like it, and hit the notification bell as well. This is Kirby Tanks and Gaming Productions 39. See y'all next time.